Welcome in, everyone. My name is Gracey with Northern Astrology, and I am here today to talk all things sports astrology featuring the Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm very excited about. I feel like this game is going to be one to enjoy for everyone. You know, these primetime games where the Chiefs were taking everyone down to the wire last year, not as much this year. I feel like it's been some surprises from the Chiefs as far as their discipline or lack thereof at times. And the Detroit Lions are banged the fuck up. So if you are here to figure out how the cosmos relate to the world around you, oh my gosh, me too. So you're in the right place. I'm super excited to be here and yap away with you all. You know, this is something that I get to do every time that the Chiefs play a game, and it's like an excuse to just have a live stream and talk with you all about the things that I already love, like astrology and the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you see me going off on tangents, or if you hear me more or less, you can kind of just keep in mind I'm a passionate person. I'm an Aries sun, Gemini moon, Cancer rising, going through the motions, right? You know, with so much happening around my Aries sun with Neptune and Saturn dancing around there, my sun naturally being conjunct my MC in the 10th house. I'm just a very much a public person. I have been my whole life. I get to share stories with people. I've created stories. I've been able to be a writer and a voice of so many different personalities of my own through the years. And I finally get to settle in and be my authentic self with merging my love for all things unseen and unspoken and reality. So that's kind of the little bubble that I live in most days, is the very much the 12th house that I have a Pisces stellium as well as Chiron in the 12th house. And it's learning how to do all this stuff out loud. It's learning how to heal all parts of ourselves at once while still facing the everyday and not getting lost in just, I'm healing, leave me alone kind of energy. Because it's easy to do. It's so easy to do. It's so easy right now, as the sun is in my intercepted fourth house, to just be like, I am closing off from everyone. I am tired of everything. It is October. Where is my break? And that's the thing. It's like, I want to live a life that I don't have to go and heal from, right? I am simply integrating all parts of myself into what that is that I want. And as a mother, as a partner, as a household goddess, I do feel like I do all things domestic quite well, while I'm also fixing different parts of myself with my chiropractor as well as my therapist. There's so many things that we are as people. You know, we're not just these linear beings that only exist in one area. So if you are a sports person that wants to get all woo woo, go for it. If you're a woo woo person that enjoys sports, cool. Don't let people that take too much ketamine tell you what to do with your life, okay? I don't take it. I think it's a good thing for people when it helps therapeutically. I think it's been abused by so many to say that they have like messages coming in from the divine. Sometimes those messages are get some sleep, hydrate, take care of yourself, go on a walk barefoot. You know, like, we don't always need to be head in the clouds. You know, there's as above so below, with your feet in the ground and your head in the sky. It's very much a polarity of sorts existing in this world. So be comfortable with opposites. And as I have absolutely zero Libra in my tropical chart, it is very interesting when I start looking at my sidereal chart and I'm like, oh, perfect. That Pluto in Libra is that big, big, big transformation that I get to have this lifetime. And it's not just this beautiful, topical, aesthetically pleasing transformation, which a lot of pop astrology or modern astrology likes to consider Libra this beautiful Venusian sign. And it is. It is. And it's also the halls of Ma'at and the heart being weighed against the feather, and this big crossover, because you know, you see Aries and Libra, it's the alpha and the omega if you look at the signs, and it's very much representing of the Godhead. And having Aries and Libra in your chart is very much learning what is and what is not yourself, and expressing that autonomy through understanding the divine as well as yourself through the divine and yourself as divine. So yeah, it's a lot of things. And Libra season is something that I get to learn about through all the beautiful Libra placements around me each and every day. So shout out to the love of my life, which is a Libra, and my Aries self, learning from my opposite each and every day. You get to find the people in your life that are huge teachers through those oppositions. So I like to tell people don't be afraid of them. That being said, let's go into today's chart, because not only is this the astrology of today's Sunday night football game with the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead in Kansas City, back home for the Chiefs, this is also the chart of the moment. Okay, so let's collectively just take a minute and have a moment. So these sports charts do not have to be something that you go and watch the whole game. Okay, like I am not telling people, to understand sports astrology, you must watch the game. You can watch the highlights and figure out how things played out or not, or how they didn't play out. The one thing that I want to stick with is that there is no right way to learn way to do this. I am a student this week because I guess it says that I am, and whenever that happens, I know that it like just creates another thing or it bounces right back. So with my computer randomly deciding to do something, my software said that it wasn't working, but once again, I don't believe it. So if you guys can see this, let me know in the chat if you're able to. I haven't talked to my chat at all. So there's that. I guess it started a new one is what I'm understanding. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, we're all learning this together. It's all something that we are doing together, and having so many different perspectives, opinions, having so many different people that are chiming in the sports astrology space. I'm like, "Hey, cool. More voices, more people, more active participation in something that I've just kind of been blazing through, bullishly letting myself be like, yeah, I'm an expert. I'll stream every week. No problem. That's the Aries in me, right? So each and every game, like I said, you don't have to watch the whole thing. You don't have to be like glued to the TV and like writing down all the times and all the things. I was watching the pre-show last week, and it was about one of Jacksonville players, Josh Hines Allen, the one of his players. I guess he had gotten a lot of flack for being gone, for like missing the end of last season, like a game last season, and people are like, typical, whatever. It's just something that he just had to eat, because he was really going through things behind the scenes that was so difficult because his child was sick, and he like talked about that on this ESPN special. And while he was talking about that, it was like these people just ragging on him. And there's no way that anyone would know what's going on unless he had like communicated that. So he had to eat that and just be like, yeah, no problem. This is just what's going on in my life. I'll just go ahead and ignore social media and share about his child overcoming, I believe it was leukemia. And I'm just like watching him just go through that stuff and then come back out. And it was like, they talked about, I can't remember the specifics, but there was something that zoomed in. It was one of the first symbols that we talked about in the Sabian symbol of the rising of that game. And then the Red Cross nurse. And it was something about the symbolism for let me just find that, because I know where it is. I think I know where it is. I'm going to look it up in my app, but it was just like the symbolism of the game before, like the pregame show was actually the symbolism that was showing up just completely ahead of the game. So it's like, it's not always the actual, things happening in the game. We didn't see a nurse rush out onto the field, right? We didn't see that happening, but we did see talking about hospitalizations and seeing things from that like caring and nurturing perspective that we mentioned. Okay, so that was a Christmas tree. That's what it was. It was around a Christmas. I see. I knew I would get to it. All I needed to do was, go into my symbols that I could like search by detail. So last week was 9 degrees Taurus, and that was a Christmas tree decorated and shines in the darkness. It was a Christmas game or around Christmas that his child was sick and needed this treatment. And then the next degree was a Red Cross nurse with warm sympathy. And then the following was the woman sprinkling long rows of flowers. And that was planting seeds to me to be like, hey, can you back off these players a little bit? Like sometimes they're going through shit we don't even know about. So that's why I encourage people to watch the show, even if they don't follow along with sports. We do talk a lot about the things that we see in the charts. And since we have another Taurus rising this game, we're going to be seeing a very much a game similar to the last couple that we've had with Taurus rising. So that'll be interesting to dissect. But when we look at these things and we see the big perspective, like what are the major transits going on right now? I'd say Uranus retrograde, trine, Pluto retrograde, exactly, in these air signs. So it's like a collective awakening happening. We know that this is going to happen just because the last time Uranus was in Gemini, there was a lot of things like propaganda being, revealed. And look, I've had my time as the conspiracy theory friend where I'm like, everything is make believe and it's all fake. And it's like, okay, look, that's great. And I appreciate that perspective because I think it's great to have an open mind. It's great to be like, if you guys could see the things that I consume from all angles and all perspectives that are people in their right mind, like, right, I'm not going and being like, I'm going to read this alternative right neo-Nazi guys, thoughts on life. I'm not consuming that kind of stuff. In fact, my block list is so strong with people that are ignorant enough to base hatred off of race. Like, there's so many things you can hate people over, and you're going to choose someone as dumb and obvious as race. Like, choose something like this person has lived in Detroit their whole life, and you just make fun of that. And it's like, okay, you don't even care to like see the rest of what the world can offer. Like, be creative. Be creative. I could get way meaner than that. Like that's just my Gemini moon going with like the obvious thing. Detroit fans, I love you guys. I think Kansas City and Detroit are very much aligned on the same kind of wavelength when it's like hustle, fight hard. Our cities were built off of very innocuous things. So it's just very much, I feel like this game is going to be gritty. And every time that people say gritty with football, it's like, ugh, what a stereotypical word. I think that's from my announcing days where anytime I caught myself saying gritty, I'd be like, you're being lazy. Find a new word to describe this player or describe this play. So unfortunately, with Detroit and the Chiefs, it is gritty, and we've had some great years. Detroit has had way more of an understanding of what sports dynasties are like, with not only the Lions but also the Pistons and the Red Wings. So like they've got some stuff going on, right? Yeah, Alex, thank you for understanding. Like full on reason to dislike someone being from Detroit. Like it's where I'm going with things today. I think it's fun to know that most people think I live in a cornfield or think that like tornadoes are a huge problem in my daily life because I'm from Kansas City. So it's like I get like hating people from cities like St. Louis people. Don't get me started. Like, don't get me started on that city, right? But we got to do better. Hating people because of the color of their skin is so lame and it's so ignorant and it's so outdated. And it's like we got to be better at where we're directing this type of energy because like what we direct towards others is how we feel about ourselves. So if you're just like outwardly hating people for various reasons and vocalizing that, spending time vocalizing that. My other half does YouTube reactions for his creative outlet for right now. He's got thousands of creative outlets, but the one on YouTube that he focuses on are reaction videos. And not to be rude to the YouTube crowd, because I love YouTube, especially when it works. I think we're back up and running without lag. So maybe it was me. Maybe it was me, you guys. Who knows? But having those types of moments where you have people coming into your comments and talking about your appearance, it's like, it's so base level insulting. It's so fucking caveman like. So if you're gonna like actually sit and critique somebody out loud for the entire world to see that that's what you're spending your time doing, be creative, be cerebral with it. Like, do something more than just attack people on their looks. And it's just so dumb. I think it's so ridiculous. So I know that the NFL has all this stuff out there, like spread love, not hate. Their fan bases, however, might not do that. We need to have like stage fans that are just kind everywhere, and they can be like section leaders where they just try to like have good vibes in the stadiums. That's what I would do if I was NFL commissioner. I would put rose quartz under every seat in the new Arrowhead, and also selenite all around the top of the stadium, and black tourmaline underneath the field. Like whatever foundation they put it on, black tourmaline underneath it all. And not having weird caves under a stadium. I just feel like that makes it like, ugh, just bad vibes. So solid foundation, black tourmaline, all of that. And yeah, I just think that's what I would do if I was an NFL owner that already had billions of dollars. Like, get crystals involved, and then you would win forever. Like, come on. I have not done any predictions today. I've simply been yapping. I started this around 20 minutes ago. So I was just getting into the things like the chart, which is really a transit calculator. Like, the moon is going to be 10 degrees Cancer tonight. Like, the moon for me has been indicating the score over the last few games, and still has been, even though I've been getting a lot of the like by how many points off last week, knowing that the Chiefs are going to be having that close of a game. Watching it was painful. I guess that was Monday, so it wasn't last week. It was just recently. But these are also transit charts. So the moon getting closer to Jupiter, it is going to be a lot more emotional based, all of that. So I am going to be going in through the feel of the game, and then we'll go into the one-on-one charts, and then I will be making my predictions with the tri-will game. I do think the Chiefs are going to be winning this one. Shocking, I know. I pick the Chiefs every time almost, unless I have a bad dream or unless I see something pretty wild in the charts, which I think Uranus conjunct the Chiefs' sun is already wild to begin with, and having that transit the entire season is going to be wild. So we'll see what happens. They also have this when Uranus jumps back into Taurus in those later degrees, that will be close to their moon. So we'll just see how that goes. But for today's game, once again, we have the make or break in your first house, make or break position, where it's like, hey, how is this game going to go? How is it all going to start? We have that starting in the sign of Taurus, and that is 5 degrees Taurus, which is my sapien symbol mentor's favorite degree of the zodiac. It is represented by a youthful widow, fresh and soul cleansed from grief, kneels at an open grave to receive the secret of eternal life. Very loud indeed. Today is going to be something along the lines of possibly a woman or a woman that has lost someone, going ahead and being like in the spotlight. Who knows? It could also be somebody that has gone through some things that's being featured at the game. Maybe we'll see that in the broadcast tonight. Then we have the same degree that we had in the New York game, a bridge being built across a high narrow gorge, so possibly bridge symbolism tonight during the stream. And then the solution degree is going to be the woman of Samaria comes to draw water from Jacob's well, which is all about like having like blessings all around you and life altering experiences, and blessings of water is a huge thing. So I don't know if it's going to rain. I have no idea, but there could be some sort of symbolism there. I am a Chiefs fan for sure. I've been born and raised, grew up in this to the point where I have like pictures of myself from the early 90s and Chiefs stuff, and I feel like a lifelong blessing and curse, because Kansas City is also my hometown. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri, and my dad grew up here as well. So it's like this is a place that I'm very familiar with, and it's like I've just been stuck with them my whole life, win or lose. Mahomes is playing under his lunar return today, so that will be interesting to see. Let's go ahead and take a look at today's game with the Detroit Lions chart, because Detroit has a fun chart, okay? They are also going through their Sun conjunct Jupiter, which I think if you guys have seen the way Detroit is playing, Detroit has had a lot of injuries, and they have had a lot of blind spots or weaknesses, as much as they've had a ton of success and a ton of fortitude shown up in the first part of the season. I also believe because they have Mercury, Pluto, and their sun all conjunct in Cancer, their moon is probably a very important thing in their chart. It is at 10 degrees Aquarius, which is 150 degrees away from the moon today, or in conjunct or quincux, as they call it in, I don't know, more well read circles. I think that there's like a level of astrology that I will never actually get to because I don't have the technical or, um, I guess, focus for a lot of the ancient techniques. My thing that I'm focusing on right now is mostly having the time to learn how to do charts by hand, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But going into the very first house, like we were starting to at the game earlier, I just said, screw it, let's just look at the teams together. We're going to see for the Lions, their Chiron as well as Mars in Taurus there. And their Mars and Taurus is loosely conjunct Uranus retrograde in the first house. Uranus retrograde in Gemini has been a lot of fucked up passes and a lot of drop balls, right? That's just what we've seen a lot in the NFL. There's been some things that don't make sense. There's been a lot of things that do make sense. And then you're just like, how did that happen? We don't know. It's whatever. There's a lot of the parts of Mars that are going to be strong. They're going to show up very capable. They're going to be aggressive. Having Mars and Taurus is not just like a specific area of the body that you're strong. That is the physical body. You are just strong. That is an earth sign, physical sign, and is very much, having the ability to just keep going. And it's a fixed Mars, so it's going to be rigid and hard to work against. So they're going to have the tenacity, they're going to have the aggression, they're going to have the drive. That's not going to be a problem. Going to the second house, which is the pace of the game, which is ruled by Mercury, which happens to be conjunct Mars in the seventh house, directly conjunct the ascendant or the descendant and opposite the ascendant. Very interesting to see how that plays out. But knowing that Mercury is in Scorpio, that is a very to the depths, very much a deep, emotional, powerful sign. So outbursts and anger outbursts as much as tears to be expected. And it might just be frustration tears, who knows, with the moon in Cancer, trine Mercury in Scorpio, as well as Mars in Scorpio. That is a fun time. I spent a lot of time being angry already today and I got it all out of my system, and I processed so much before noon. I was like, you know what? It's showbiz, baby. We just gotta get going. And it's because like I'm ruled by the moon. So when you have placements ruled by the moon, like obviously the Lions have their Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto, and Sun, as well as their Ceres all in Cancer, and you have both the moon and Jupiter in Cancer. Those are already abundance of emotions. And then having Mars and Mercury trine that, it's not great. It's not the easiest. And you go to the depths, you uncover some things that you might not like about yourself, or you might not like about your situation, or you might not like about your mindset. You might not like about how you've allowed yourself to get to a certain point. Like you might just have a lot of fed up energy, and it's from the root chakra that is imbalanced. It's from our own insecurities and our own doubts and our own fears. So the Lions have a lot to overcome now that I've just gone and taken this to a very deep level. We are definitely in the underworld with Mercury and Scorpio. So that's trine my Mercury in Pisces exactly. My Mercury in Pisces at 8 degrees Pisces. So it's very close. But it's like, this is just this natural energy that I live with, and going to the depths and understanding things like death and rebirth and transformation cycles. The chrysalis period of just going into that little tiny cocoon is what I view Libra as, that like, little caterpillar. It little kind of looks like a caterpillar as much as it looks like the Omega sign. But it looks like a little inching worm, and then it goes in the chrysalis of Scorpio, and then it comes out as a butterfly and flies away with Sagittarius. And that's kind of how I viewed those signs and those transitions. And it can be a very messy time when you are just eating, consuming, trying to figure out why you're doing all this, to like burrow yourself in this thing and just trusting the process. And, having all that Libra squaring all their Cancer. I think that that can be a really emotionally conflicting time. So they're physically going to have to be putting themselves through the ringer today and using their emotions as building blocks to get through a lot of the mental problems that we're seeing in the third house. So with the, like I said, the second house being ruled by Mercury and Scorpio, we talked about the depths, we talked about all the emotions, we talked about all of that, right? We talked so much about that second house thing without talking about the third house in the depth that I wanted to, of course. But having all those things in a chart and in the third house of the game, I do think this is going to be an emotionally draining game for the Lions. Going into the fourth house, they do have Ceres at 29 degrees, and that is loosely conjunct Jupiter. So I think how they nurture themselves and how they talk to themselves and how they show up for themselves behind closed doors is going to be more of the vibe today. And how they can overcome all that is just mentally and emotionally processing things well. Speaking of processing things well, that's probably why I have been yapping nonstop. I have this aquamarine pendant that was given to me by one of my close friends who also happened to send me this beautiful postcard of the moon. And I just feel like this has helped strengthen my throat chakra and just allow me to authentically express myself. So thank you, Renee, for your amazing gift. Of course, I say it on a live stream instead of a thank you note, and I just sent you a bunch of stuff in the mail. But this is also a great way to find out that I'm grateful. When you give your 10th house friend things, it'll just show up in the public domain. But getting back to this chart, yeah, fourth house today, there is Jupiter there in the fourth house for the game, and that is the home team, right? The fourth house is where I see the home team. Fifth house we go into, and that's where the part of fortune with Leo placements today. Leo placements are going to be huge. So if you have any prop bets that you want to do, bet on Leo placements. So I believe that's Kareem Hunt too. If you guys have anything to bet on, I would suggest that for prop bets. Going into the fifth house of creativity, refs are going to be loud with that South Node in Virgo in the fifth house of referees. Fifth house also represents gambling. So if you are a gambler and you have Leo placements or you have fifth house placements, that is funny because that means that you have fifth like house energy, and that's the house of gambling. And it's just natural to you. And if you like gambling, you might have fifth house placements. So look up your birth chart. You just need to know your exact time of birth, and you can find that through your birth certificate or your mom, or a secret third thing that I had to do, which was find out through my grandma's photo album of my birth because my parents didn't take the right precaution to figure that out. I don't know. They were just too busy trying to figure out how to have a baby, and I can't blame them for that. I have the exact times of both my children, so I feel like I did my job, right? That's all you can do. Going into that fifth house, so we do see Venus in Leo, and in the later degrees of Leo, the 29th degree of Leo is this like mermaid sitting on a rock degree, and it's just all about waiting for Prince Charming to come along and save you. And that can be very bad for Leos because they don't like sitting around and waiting for anything. They like the pursuit, they like the play fights, they flirt by fighting, and it's like, okay, really, this is what we're doing. By having that loosely conjunct their Neptune in Virgo there, it does kind of feel like they spend a lot of time figuring out deception, figuring out things that could be just smoke and mirrors, things that could be troubling them. They kind of sit around waiting for someone to fix them, save them. I don't know. That's just kind of the energy that they're giving off with this conjunction, but it's like they know they can save themselves. Like 1 degree of Virgo is like a guy figuring out that he can just get up and do things, or he's like laser focused on one thing. Yeah. Not not just get up and do things. I love that I said that. But it's in a portrait, the best of a man's traits and character are idealized. So it's like there's the best of them, and then there's the times that people might see them as less than that. Their fans, I feel like, might feel that way sometimes. Going into the sixth house, which is intercepted for today's game, that means Libra is intercepted. So I'm glad I shared all that information about my intercepted Libra. Usually I'm just like, oh, I've just shared so much about everything that who knows if that was even like for a point. And then I realize, yes, it is. So having that kind of like south node energy along with the sun, I feel like that's not as bad as if they had their sun conjunct the transiting south node. Having your sun conjunct the transiting south node, just look at Patrick Mahomes for an example. He has been struggling in a way that's just been kind of hard to watch, but also it's little things. And it's like the Virgo south node is a lot different than the Libra south node. So having their south node loosely conjunct the sun, also to conjunct Lilith retrograde today, and loosely conjunct the vertex. I think Libras around the 15 degree are going to be impactful for today's game, and I do believe that we have Jared Goff on that other side. He is also a Libra, and I think his sun is around 19 or 20, so his birthday is October 14th, so it's almost a solar return. But sun and sun does not necessarily mean you're going to win, right? We've seen sun and sun be very much a burnout kind of feeling, or a very big ego battle, which can be a lot of what the sun can bring sometimes. So, anyways, that south node is in that sixth house, intercepted in Libra. So I don't feel like this is going to be something that's like detrimental for the Lions. I just think that because of what has happened already physically, they might be at a deficit. Going into the seventh house, which is one-on-one, like head-to-head battle, is that first and seventh house. Seventh is usually like struggles with others, whereas the first house is struggle with self. That's how I view not only, I guess, in the birth chart, but also a game chart. The first house can be very much like a war with yourself, and then the seventh house can feel like a war with others. I have the seventh house Mars, so that's probably why I feel that way. Then we have going into that eighth house. It's also relatively empty. We have White Moon Lilith there for Detroit. Don't use that one in sports astrology yet. Then we have the Saturn out there for the Detroit Lions in the ninth house, which is where, once again, I kind of see them not being as formidable of an opponent as they have been. You know, being on the road in general is going to be hard and going to be full of lessons. This could be a lesson around knees, joints, or the skeletal system in general, bones perhaps. Hopefully they don't have any more injuries, because I feel like they already have a ton. But it's all about having that type of discipline, patience, resilience that Saturn and Capricorn loves. But their Saturn is retrograde, so who knows? Maybe since this is at the 7th degree, which is a Libra ruled degree, this could be some sort of takes a while to learn the structures of others, or it takes them a while to acclimate to today's infrastructure. Who knows? I'm just saying things that relate to Saturn-ish in a way. So there we go. Going into that 10th house and having that 10th house ruled by Saturn, and today Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, could mean that we do see some foot injuries once again, or the feet being a prominent part of today's game, or very, I don't know how it would be foot forward, but there's that. Could be another kicking thing, I guess, maybe. So the kicking has been wonky, but that's because the Chiefs have Chiron and Pisces. But today, the Lions do have their moon in the 10th house, and that is loosely conjunct Pluto retrograde, and their Juno retrograde is conjunct Pluto retrograde. So could be lessons in commitment or how they show up for each other. This could be a game where they seem to be at odds with each other, or things just seem to be distant or aloof, or not as warm and supportive. Or this could be the game that they like rally behind each other and show up as a team. You know, Aquarius is also home in the 11th house, and that can be where you have your networks and your community. But it can also be like an isolated type of community where it's like, okay, I'm going to form community within myself, my manager, my agent, and my family, and that's my community. And you don't really blend in with the team. We could see just some interesting team dynamics. Who knows? Going into that 11th house where today's North Node is, nothing really for the Lions until we get into the 12th house, which is intercepted with Aries intercepted and they have their Uranus in the 12th house. So I feel like they have signs of life today. I feel like they have burst. I feel like the Lions have a lot of energy behind them as far as if they overcome the emotional wear and tear that they're taking, they can really rally behind their mindset and show up strong. Uranus in the 12th house, I feel like, Uranus in the 4th house would be like a lot of like points for the home team. Or Uranus in the 5th house would be like a lot of creative plays that we're going to see. Uranus in the 6th house means sudden changes in physical conditions, and whatever sign it's in usually can indicate what kind of conditions: arms, hands, lungs for Gemini, since Uranus is in Gemini still. But yeah, we see a lot of Uranus and Aries being more about mental switches. So this one could be they rally and get their mental completely under control, and then we see this incredibly different team come out in second half. 12th house to me is kind of like the end of things, as it's the end of a chart, but it's also the beginning at the same time. Ouroboros, it's lovely. There's so much about having their north node also in their conjunct Chiron. I think this is like a time of the head being a very much a key focus for Detroit in some way, shape, or form, whether it's mental health, whether it's mental strength, whether it's music therapy, whether it's like finding outlets for anger, or finding ways to bond that. 29 degrees Aries is a really beautiful degree because it's not what you would think of 29 degrees Aries, which is a very aggressive degree. It's the music of the spheres degree, and it's says it implicates harmonies and sounds of all kinds, and the spheres refer to the planets in our solar system, and the music of the spheres is talking about their rapidity of vibrations, and also that the planets move at varying rates of motions, and the sounds made by their movement vary according to these different rates of motions, and no sounds are given forth. But I affirm that the movements of the planets are modulated according to harmonic proportions. And that's what Johannes Kepler said. It's just beauty in motion when you see all these things working together. So I love the planets. I will always tell you that they have an impact on our life. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. You are allowed to be wrong. Okay, so getting into the Chiefs chart for today, we do see that it is with Venus right there on the rising in the 12th house for the Kansas City Chiefs, which has not historically been great. The Chiefs having 12th house energy or not having 12th house energy does usually seem to prove better for their games. But with this 12th house Aries Jupiter, Jess Groove pointed it out on YouTube. Like, oh boy, another game with Jupiter and Aries in that 12th house. And I'm like, yeah, it's not getting any better. These primetime games are when the Chiefs, and it doesn't matter whatever time it is. And usually, since we're in the Northern Hemisphere, it's fine. Whatever time it is, it correlates and it's the same every single time. So we have a lot of the same charts because whatever season it is, that's how astrology works. So we're just going to have a lot of these while they're in evening games. Don't worry, I have not looked at anything for the next upcoming game, so I have no idea when that one is. I'm like, if you're wanting me to do that work ahead, I have not done it. But so they do have a lot of 12th house energy today. Going into that first house, though, we do see Mercury retrograde conjunct their moon and their sun, all right there in their little stellium of sorts, all conjunct Uranus and Gemini retrograde. That has shown as a lot of drop passes, a lot of emotional outbursts, and a lot of tantrums. And people are like, why is this happening? And I'm like, have you met a Taurus moon? Like, hello. And that's how I know, once again, that the Chiefs are Gemini's sun at that 0 degrees and also that moon in Taurus. It's so fitting. Mercury retrograde in Taurus is also very fitting. So they are learning to find the right balance of vocal and togetherness and how that works all at once. Going into that second house of today's game, we do not see any placements as well as the third house. So I feel like this is going to be a little bit less mentally frustrating for the Chiefs, as well as the pace of the game being a little bit easier. I don't know how, but it just seems like that. Going into the fourth house, we do see their north node still conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, And going into that fifth house, we see so much. So that fourth house, home team, that's where we're at Arrowhead today, and feeling that home buzz and vibe. White Moon Lilith is also conjunct the Pallas Athena for the Chiefs, and the part of fortune in the fifth house is conjunct their Mars, and loosely conjunct their Uranus, very loosely. That's like a minute away, but it's nearby. It's all in the fifth house. So yes, with that south node, the refs are going to be super critical, nitpicky. We're going to see that, especially on the Chiefs. They do have Vesta there. That's where things are just hitting hard for them. But they have to hit execution on everything today. They have to be playing from the heart, and they have to be playing cohesively and using that heart strength and all the love behind them and all the love surrounding this team. They got to channel it into proper formations and execution. Going into the sixth house, we don't see anything for the Chiefs, which I think indicates that there's not going to be too much here as far as injuries for them. They will literally be just beating themselves. They just have to not destroy themselves like they did last game. Can't even talk about what happened in Jacksonville. Like, what the hell? Going into that seventh house, we do see Neptune and Lilith there, conjunct Mercury and Mars for today's game. I think that's just going to show a little bit more of that transformative anger. We talked about how anger can transform so much. Anger can change so many things, and learning how to channel that anger out, especially while Chiron is in Aries. And while Saturn isn't in Aries, it's a nice time to just get some mental work done. So that way the next round of Saturn back in Aries in February 2026, you'll be ready, right? That's all we do is just prepare and mentally try to shift and understand, and just so much of it is all about what we are capable of controlling. And while Saturn is still in Pisces, it's all about flow. So that being loosely where the Chiefs are as far as like using their anger to push them through spiritually, I think that's what they're going to have to do, especially with Mars right next to their Neptune. That's a great time to do that, transmute that anger into something magical. That's what we're here to do, right? Like, I woke up with the fire of 1,000 suns today after just one tiny little incident where I had a fight with my dad. And it's like, I'm his caretaker and he is a grown ass man with Mars and Scorpio, by the way. And he loves fighting. I'm a Capricorn Mars, so I win, but he loves fighting. And it's like, hey, look, as much as I like butting heads and like being the caretaker, the bad person, we got to find a way through this. So if you're going to be mad at me, that's cool. How am I going to like use all of the things that have made me mad over the years to let go of it all and just say, this is my dad, I'm taking care of him. And that's what I do. That's what I get to work on when I am aware, you know. And if you go through life with goggles on, with helmets on, with blinders on, whatever you want to call it, and you just try not to feel things, or you try to desensitize yourself to feeling things, I was there too. And then good news, it just came back 10 years later and I had to deal with it all tenfold. But being able to help someone age with grace is an honor, and it is also a privilege to stand up for myself in times where I need to. And I'm like, hey, look, we're not fighting today. This isn't happening. I'm going to end this and move on. And that's where I think that we can be self-aware through astrology. We can see our weaknesses in moments where the moon is just ransacking my emotional range, you know, that being in my 12th house. Of course, we can know these things and we can move with the cosmos or we can move against them. And I highly recommend moving with them. I lived the first 30 years of my life with no astrological insight. I knew that it was like my birthday and I'm an Aries, but I didn't know there was a whole season of it. I didn't like pay attention to those seasons. I was very much programmed by my surroundings and knowing that there's things around that can keep us in a lower vibration where we're fighting on the internet and just like yelling at people for no reason, or fighting with their family, or fighting with the people that we love and calling it, you know, well, I just had a bad day or I'm hungry. And it's like, well, also you feel like your needs aren't being met, and that's okay too, but talk it out, work it out. And that's what a lot of things can be done when you start to see the whole picture. And that's hard. It's really, really hard. So if anyone has been going through it, I get it. It's okay. And today, with Mercury and Mars trying the moon, and those all being in water signs and that forming a grand water trine with the North Node, there is a lot going on. So if you've been extra emotional, who knows? Maybe that's why. There is definitely room for a lot of opening in the 8th and ninth house of today's game for the Chiefs. The odds are open. You know, all we see in that 8th house is Vesta, and that kind of seems like keeping the odds alive for the traveling team, as Vesta being in Sagittarius there in the 8th house can represent to me. Um, Maybe keeping that fire burning for the travel team, and that Juno and Vesta kind of working together to be like, okay, but there is ninth house energy here. The travel team will feel a little bit electrified, or a little bit like the fire's there. So with all things in the 8th house, I think it has run its course. It will run its course. The 8th house is very much about the going into the underworld, and then how do you come out of that, and how do you face the world again. And having Vesta there can be a very much like, you have to have that inner fire within your underworld at all times. So that can be a lot. And depending on what sign that is, it can be different areas too. In Sagittarius, you have to keep the fire going for your freedom. And that's intellectual freedom, emotional freedom, spiritual freedom, all of it. Going to that ninth house, which is empty for the Chiefs, which I think kind of is nice. An empty ninth house for both the actual chart of today's game and the Chiefs. Like, we're not going to see, hopefully, too much chaos there. The South Node being right on the MC for today's game for the Chiefs. They're used to this. They're kind of in the spotlight. Everyone's game, like, playing against the Chiefs is their Super Bowl, right? So Detroit playing against the Chiefs, like the Chargers playing against the Chiefs, that was their Super Bowl. Philly, the Chiefs, that was the replay of the Super Bowl. And the Giants, the Chiefs, that was the Giants Super Bowl. But actually, the Giants Super Bowl came when they beat Philly, which was wild as hell. So it just kind of proves that no matter if you were recently in the Super Bowl or not, things are all over the place. Yeah, so it'll be a very interesting game for sure today. Going into that 11th house, which is more about the team, we do see that 22 degrees Saturn there for the Chiefs, and also their Chiron getting closer and closer with that North Node. So we're going to really see a lot of pressure on Harrison Butker, no matter what, because the feat and the pressure and the obsession over perfection of the North Node, we're going to see so much of that, and what it really, it'll show what he's made of, right? And his faith and conviction in himself is just as strong as his faith and conviction in the world around him. Then, you know, shouldn't be too bad. Unshakable energy for sure is what that man could provide. I think he's a Cancer, so I think maybe the moon today might be in his favor. We'll see. But going into this 12th house, like, of course the Chiefs have Jupiter and and Venus and Taurus there. It's like, why not? Why not just continue this little trend of Venus on the ascendant and see how vocal the Chiefs can really get? Because that's what I've been seeing, is like, they will continue to stay vocal, whether, you know, it's 1 yard at the goal line and Mahomes is yelling at the refs, he has 1 yard, rah, like all of that, whether it's the teams yelling at each other. There's just a whole world of unknowns here when we have the Chiefs playing anyone ever. But yeah, like I said, having anyone playing the Chiefs lately is going to be like their Super Bowl, because the Chiefs and Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league and will be for a while. And it's like, seeing him have a bad year is like, okay, well, he's had X many great years. It's like Tom Brady having an off year. But it's not because Mahomes won't retire and spend time with his family. Mahomes loves his family, and I'm sure can't wait to retire. But Tom Brady just had an ego problem, so that's why he burned out. I think Mahomes, being such a Mercury-ruled person, is going to be a lot more in his head and a lot more driven mentally and a lot less hung up on the ego. So I'm going to be excited to just kind of see how that manifests. Let's look at the tri-wheel of today's game, because that's where we get the actual predictions, right? So you go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to drink some water and write down on my Post-it notes the numbers to watch, signs to watch, and we'll go over that. Okay. Hopefully that was enough quiet time for you guys. Gotta love it. I'm just like, hey, I yap a lot. Sometimes I need that break. Sometimes I just need to be like, we're going to be quiet for a few minutes. But yeah, I think that I got the numbers down. I'm going to go ahead and do the signs to watch live and we can talk about that. I think Taurus, once again, is going to be a part of this, a loud part of the equation of success today. Gemini might have a rough time today. I don't know what it is, but I'm just feeling like I think Gemini might not be the sign to watch just because I feel like every time I say that, Uranus and Gemini is like, haha, just kidding. Um, Cancer, definitely going to put that in there since the moon is in Cancer today, as well as Jupiter, the part of fortune in Leo. So, of course, we got to go with Leo. I am doing the signs live, so I'll rewrite the numbers and then we'll do the signs and numbers and prediction. Then we're going into, let's see, Leo, like I said, is going to be one to watch. Then also Virgo. Let's do Virgo. Libra, and let's say, Aries would be pretty wild. Pisces, maybe. Aquarius could be one. Yeah, let's say Aquarius to round that out. So we have Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Aquarius. Okay. So for today's game, we have 5, 10, 15, 23, 38, 50, 60, 73, and 83 for numbers to watch. And then we have Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Aquarius for signs to watch. And I do believe the Chiefs end up winning by 10 points today. So that is what I'm sticking with. And I hope that the game is fun to watch. I hope it's been like, I hope it ends up being something that is uh both sides get to enjoy, you know, like I'm not just like, oh, I hope both teams have fun. I do want the Chiefs to win, of course I do, I'm a Chiefs fan. However, I think with the Jupiter in that fourth house for the Chiefs, as well as that fifth house pile up being so loud for the Chiefs, and I think with their Saturn kind of showing up for the team aspect, I think if they can really keep their mental right, they can outdo the Lions, which I do feel like are going to exhaust themselves emotionally and mentally quicker than they will anything else, and then physically end up kind of feeling trapped a little bit. So, that being said, you know, the Chiefs and the Lions both have 12th house Aries placements where the Lions have that Uranus and the Chiefs have Jupiter. So that will be interesting to see with Neptune there at the beginning of Aries and so much kind of being mental about this game. You know, the Chiefs also have Venus right there on the ascendant. And it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a game where I think the Chiefs end up playing hard, having a comeback at home type of victory over a team that's pretty banged up. So I don't really know if it's a fair fight. We're not really seeing the A team from Detroit as much. I believe on the defense is pretty banged up. So definitely going to seem like not exactly a fair and even fight here for both the Lions and the Chiefs, but Chiefs being in need of a really strong win. So let's look at some of the fun charts today. I do have both quarterbacks and then also Noah Gray and Kelsey for the fun charts for today. So that's always good. For today's game, I do think Patrick is going to be showing the hell out physically. So if you are wanting to see what Sun and Mercury Kazemi looks like, that is what we're going to be watching for Patrick Mahomes. His Mercury is exactly at 19 degrees Libra, where the sun is today, and that could be an amplification of his already mercurial ways. And, you know, his sun being ruled by Mercury as well, and having Venus right there in between Chiron for Patrick, I think that that's a nice little buffer and booster. Is he going to be incredibly self-critical? Who knows? It could be something that just happens naturally, as he does have plenty of Virgo placements. Knowing that he is very much already in his head to begin with makes this kind of like less of a thing that's all on him. I think it's more of like, can I physically provide what I usually can or what I used to be able to for this team? Can I physically take this weight and move it all along on me? And that is very much what ends up happening with him a lot of the time. Having his Neptune and Uranus conjunct the MC, this is nothing new. We saw that last week, I believe. Then, yeah, Monday, we saw that Monday. And then I don't know what day it is. I know it's Sunday, and the Chiefs play the Lions today, and that's where my understanding of the real world ends and begins. I had like a 3-day weekend this weekend, so I'm just like naturally going to be more like, huh, what's going on? Great. Going into that seventh house where his Mars is exactly on the descendant, very much going to be loud and aggressive for today's game. Expect nothing less. Going to, let's see, his moon, like his lunar return. That's a great start for sure. Him being in his lunar return is definitely going to heighten the emotions of this and maybe carry a little bit more animosity that fuels precision. We'll see. Looking at Jared Goff's chart, I'm not going to butcher that one. We do see his Libra sun conjunct the sun, so it's a 21 degree Libra sun. So that is the degree of Libra that has piles of stuff everywhere. So I wonder what his office, or like left to his own accord, what his office or home would look like. That would be really interesting to find out. Looking at his Mercury being retrograde and conjunct the descendant today in today's game in that intercepted 6th house, that is Mercury return, so he's not only going through his solar return, he's going through his Mercury return as well. He does have the North Node conjunct Mars, so I think this game is going to boost, I believe, his purpose even further, or this game is going to push him somehow in not in a different direction, but in a direction that furthers his North Node's purpose, which who knows what that could be. He does not have a time chart, so I cannot tell you the house that North Node is in, but having a North Node in Scorpio means going to like certain emotional depths and can be quite the North Node to have. And it can also be great for a healing perspective or being somebody that helps others transform their lives. So that could be next for Jared Goff. He is the next life coach, or what are their life coaches or mentor. Like I see so many influencer things that I think it's ruined my perception of what life coaches can really be. Seeing that Jupiter in Scorpio conjunct Venus exactly, and that Venus is stationed retrograde and loosely conjunct Pluto, that is a powerful obsessive degree. So this man knows ball. He knows the research inside and out. He goes to the depths. This actually looks a lot like my son's chart that is obsessed with football too. So I kind of love that for him. Going into that 8th house, that's not his real ascendant, so ignore that. This is a noon chart. So no actual front-facing placements that we see here until we get up to the MC, where his Neptune and Uranus are stationed direct, conjunct that MC for today's game, and then we see his moon in Aquarius in that 11th house. So I feel like he's going to be the glue and the backbone of this game a lot, but he is still going through his Saturn return with his Saturn at 6 degrees Pisces, and that is stationed retrograde. So might take them a little bit longer. People with Saturn retrograde usually learn lessons a little bit after their Saturn return or right around that time, but it does take a little bit longer sometimes to see them, or takes a little bit longer for those lessons to sink in. So fear not, all the people with Saturn and Pisces, it might just take you going with the flow, and one day it all kicks in, and one day you learn why X, Y, and Z had to happen for X, Y, and Z to be in existence. So it's X, Y, and Z to happen for A, B, and C to be in existence, or whatever that is. But it's a definite lesson that, as a Saturn in Capricorn, going with the flow gives me hives. So no thank you. I would like to strategically and specifically map out every step along the way. And it's such a perfection driven thing. So I think Pisces, Saturn have a gift of artistic rebellion and freedom and flow that lives within Pisces in a way that only people in Pisces placements understand. Going into that 12th house that is intercepted, we don't see anything for Jared Goff. We do see his Lilith conjunct the AC. I almost said MC again. It's fine. Conjunct the ascendant for today's game. So that could be a little bit of spicy Jared coming out. We'll definitely see how that goes. His south node in the first house, he could feel a little bit sluggish or not really perform that well at the beginning of the game, but his mentality and his razor sharp focus is going to be what helps him in this game. Going into, let's just look at Noah Gray's first. Why not? Noah Gray has his Saturn and Sun conjunction on the AC of today's game. So the Ascendant has a lot of key secrets. His Pallas Athena is exact the Ascendant for today's game. And then his Saturn and Sun are right there in that first house. So he might be a little bit more of a physical blockade for today more than anything else. Seeing his Venus in the second house in Gemini, that's very much a boost of the hands for sure. Not seeing anything in Cancer, seeing his North Node conjunct the part of fortune of today's game. Once again, blocking, I think, maybe for others or being that like big boost of energy for others could be the key to today's game. So watch him big for blocking. But also he might have some key plays. We don't know. He could just be out there. Seeing his Mars on the descendant for today's game in the sixth house, he has possible spiciness, vocal exchanges head to head with that. Who knows? Having his Mars opposite Saturn natally, he might just be a balanced anger machine. He might have transmuted that already. Having a moon in Scorpio, conjunct Mars, that is some definite oomph to your emotional range during this time for the highs and the lows. Seeing his Pluto in the 8th house doesn't really say anything loudly to me. His Neptune is being visited by Pluto retrograde at the moment and will be for a while, as Pluto will stay in Aquarius for quite some time. And that also goes for his Uranus and South Node in Aquarius. It's all about this liberating of self and becoming more radically yourself as you go and releasing yourself from the past and releasing yourself from the parts of you that don't align with you anymore. It's very transformative. His Mercury and Jupiter are also in the 12th house of today's game, which kind of indicates to me maybe not the star, maybe not the front center, but definitely still an active participant and being physical on the field. Looking at Travis Kelce's chart for today's game, I think it's very interesting to see. Once again, all of his sixth house energy shows up as being a very physical part of the game. His MC in the second house shows that he can help with the pace of the game for sure. I think he is a presence and getting those first downs and being a handy, reliable type of presence for Patrick Mahomes, as we know that Mahomes' sun is being visited by Venus. Kelsey's Mercury is being visited by Venus as well as his ascendant. So having Venus get out of his 12th house and into his first house always feels better. Sorry, 12th house Venuses. I love so many 12th house Venus that it's like I know that they long for the normalcy they think that everyone else has, but it's like what you long for makes you like so dull. Like you are so magical as you are. Stay creating, stay visualizing, stay building, stay dreaming if you have a 12th house Venus, because that's what you are meant to do. And the right person will always find you, always, as long as you are creating out of that heart-based place, your art or whatever you create, whether it's a live stream, whether it's a pamphlet for an engineering panel you're on, whatever it is that you pour yourself into, that's what attracts others to you, is the magic you create for yourself. And 12th house Venuses just have that naturally, that it's like a lighthouse of love that they offer others, and it's up to us to go towards that light and understand it for all it's worth. But having your Venus in the first house does feel like usually a better experience, but having Venus in the last degrees of Virgo can feel like a lobotomy. So there's that. Knowing that that's the case, having Virgo Venus as well as Virgo Mercury conjoining there, it can be kind of a superpower. You can get so many Excel spreadsheets done. You can rearrange your entire pantry. You can, iron 100 shirts. Like there's just so much energy that comes with Venus and Mercury linking up, because it's like this, you know, aesthetic and what you bring to the surroundings and the vibes you bring to the function with the mentality you bring to the function. So, going into that, we see his Sun and Mars conjunction in Libra, conjunct that vertex in Libra as well. So maybe he is that secret ingredient, the special gift to today's game as well. Seeing his Pluto and Venus in the 7th house just indicates to me that this is another personal game. I think every game is personal from here on out, as I believe this is his last season playing for the Chiefs. His moon in the 8th house, so a lot of anger, a lot of channeling that anger into a higher energy and a higher meaning, or a higher calling card can definitely be a signature of an 8th house moon, just learning to transmute. That is such a big theme of the 8th house, and alchemize everything from lead to gold, and it's not the external that you think. But luckily, he doesn't have an 8th house moon. He has a different moon, and I believe it's like third or fourth house. Yeah, third house, because he's like hometown hero energy. Okay, so anyways, going into that 9th house, he might be a total shakeup for today's game. They could study him, but he still does something radical with that Uranus in that 9th house. Going into the 11th house, where he has his North Node and vertex, he could be the glue to keeping it all together, being that guy that just says, hey, we're going to get through this as a team. We're going to keep going as a team. Who knows? Having his Pallas Athena, which is that powerful wisdom and that intuitive goddess-like protection of that wisdom, very much to me represents Sophia in our charts. That being conjunct Neptune and Ceres there in the 12th house. Interesting. Could be having some higher minded thinking, could be using elevated approach, having that retrograde. It could take him a while to get to that elevated approach, but he might be there now. He's dating someone that's, or engaged to someone that is very much a brainiac. So maybe that has rubbed off on him with his Sagittarius moon, that thirst for knowledge all the time. So very much interesting to see today's game for Travis Kelce. I do think he shows up pretty well. I think Jupiter being conjunct as part of fortune could easily be some blind spots for him as well. We talked about that being the case for the Lions today with all their energy around the Jupiter. But the Chiefs have it too, so we can't say that the Chiefs haven't had some blind spots so far. So yeah, I'm very excited that I started at 2:22 and I ended at 3:33, and that is my wrap up of today's game. Once again, for the little snippet, if you are looking to see the numbers and signs to watch for, we are looking for 5, 10, 15, 23, 38, 50, 60, 73, and 83 to all have a day, or those numbers being relevant in some way to today's game, as well as Taurus, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Aquarius all being signs to watch for today's game. I do have the Chiefs winning by 10 points. We'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to the journey of this sports astrology adventure we go on each week. It's not always about just sports, right? I am a living, breathing being that happens to think about so many things other than sports. It just happens to be that I have created an audience of people who love the idea of merging the cosmos and the logos with, just observation and study. And we get to just do so much here that I look forward to each week. And that's why no matter tears or not in the morning, I show up loudly for this program. And it's why I've chosen to work mostly solo, because I have a work ethic of 1,000 suns teaming together and trying. They could try to keep up with me, but I think I might have the energy of 1,001 suns. Who knows? It is my Aries sun ruled by my Capricorn Mars, ruled by my Saturn in Capricorn. I just keep going no matter what. And it's because I love astrology that I love having conversations about it. I love opening up the floor at the end of the shows to talk to people that might have some questions or might want to see what today is all about. I do think women are going to be a big feature of today's game. The bridge symbolism, like we said in the Sabian symbols that we read from for today's rising. It's interesting to see how these symbols show up. And that's why I love working with the Sabian symbols, because they don't fail me. There's always something that comes up, and it's cool to see how the main stage of sports theater, or whatever theater you're watching, whether it's political theater, sports theater, pop culture theater, there's so many theaters that we have to choose from, and we get to choose to spend our precious energy and focus on. And that's what I kind of feel like I do when I get to merge the cosmic with the mundane of the daily life. Having a sports game is like having a war chart. Thanks, Astro Kate, for helping me figure that one out, giving me that tidbit of information. It's like, this is a war chart, it's a battle chart, but it's also a chart of the exact moment. And we all experience this moment collectively when we tune in. So, look at the game chart compared to your own personal chart if you want to. It's literally just a moment, and it's a transit chart essentially, but it can also tell you maybe your investment in the game, and you can see like how sports can get you sometimes. Like, we all see the distractions and the things that the propaganda machine turns out all the time, and how we're supposed to be divided against each other, whether it's gender, race, whatever you want to look at, political views, or ways that you get out of bed in the morning, you want to fight about that. There can always be something that we can argue about, but the one thing that we can all agree on is that we have to have fun in this lifetime, and we have to enjoy ourselves, right? So being self-righteous and constantly like, well, I do yoga in the morning instead of doom scroll, I'm so much better than you. It's like, yeah, in that moment you are, but there's going to be a time where you're doom scrolling and I'm on the treadmill listening to meditations, and I'm better than you in that moment. Like, what are we doing here if we're just constantly competing to be the most self-righteous, essentially? I have moments all the time where I falter, and it's not because I am just trying to be a pain in the ass. It's because I'm human, and what we do is exist on this planet. It's not exist to pay taxes. It's not exist to achieve certain things that your parents want you to achieve, whether it's getting married and having grandkids and you're just like, hell no, I don't want to do that. Or whether it's, living a traditional life where you have a 9 to 5 and you do the things. I'm an artist, right? And I saw something today that said, people do not wake up and decide to become artists. They slowly become themselves, and they already are artists no matter what. And it's very real, having so much pressure from, I have 2 earth sign parents, so I can just put it right there. Having a Virgo father and a Capricorn mother is like, when are you going to achieve X, Y, and Z goals this year? Like, this is the year that you are supposed to do this. Like, this is the year you're supposed to do that. And I do what I want in everything, in all times, in all eras, in all decades, in all timelines, in all whatever you want to call it. I simply cannot exist if I am not able to do exactly what I want when I want, and it's a problem. But I've learned how to manage that by, I don't have expectations of things. I simply know what I would do in a situation, and I know how I would be. And I can't judge others for what they do. I can't hold others accountable. I can only hold myself accountable. Seeing so many people being exposed for who they are lately, and these facades and these masks coming off, that's part of Libra season 2. Getting to the root of it. It's like, who are you at a core level? That weighing of the heart, is that really who you are? One example I saw was like one of the mavericks of, this justice movement of Katie Porter. I guess she is a politician that has stood up to a lot of big pharma, a lot of big business that have been trying to pull the wool over the eyes of American citizens. But she's also a flaming dickhead behind the scenes. And surprise, surprise, that's getting aired out too. And I saw like she like berates and abuses staffers all the time, and like has this holier than thou approach to things and calls people idiots left and right. And it's like, hey, there's one of them. But like, that's not my place, because I don't know what I would do as a politician. I've never been one, nor do I want to be anytime soon. Maybe when I'm like 90, because that's apparently when you get into politics, I guess. So I'll see when I'm still alive at 90 if I feel like doing that. I'm like, no thanks. I think I'll stick to being a private citizen that has all the rights in the world, because I've given myself a literal contract that says I'm ungovernable and nothing formed against me shall prosper, and it'll fact just make me more free and more liberated when people try to confine me into boxes, spaces, or whatever. Like, you can't tell me what my political views are because I don't have them. I radically believe in all people being part of the human race and all of us working together to get there and be better people. So I don't know where that like voting box checks, but I think it's just an independent thinker, and I'll stay open-minded till the day I die. And I really encourage others to find that rhythm because, like I said at the beginning of this, integrating all parts of yourself is key. Not letting others tell you what you need to accomplish, not comparing yourself to people that have a whole team of people helping them, and you are just yourself, and that's powerful. Strongest thing in the world is a human being and their heart energy and their heart field. But at the same time, we all have the same 24 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. But some people have more hands on deck, right? And it's okay that they do. But don't beat yourself up over not having a perfect social media image, not having hundreds of thousands of followers, not having what you think is a big platform. But yet, if you had 100 people in the room with you, it would feel like a fuck ton of people. So just remember the magnitude of your words and the power of your words and the power of your intent. When you live with a heart-based intent, heart-based things happen to you. When you live with an intent of inflicting the hurt you feel inside onto other people, that will happen to you. The more I live in rhythm with knowing that I'm divinely timed and there's nothing that can be taken or forced away from me, I'm set. And it's like, that is something that I know is a divine privilege to feel, and feeling safe in your own body is something that I think all of us millennials have been trying to do for the last 20 years. Who fucking knows? But no, I think the Pluto and Scorpio generation has definitely had their time, but it's every generation. We all have our collective thing that we all work through, and being radically yourself and being radically tapped in to knowing that you are magical all the time is a superpower. And I hope more people start to share their voices, share their stories, and talk about their journey. And it might not look pretty for everyone else. It might look like you're in a shaky camera situation. You might not have the best audio. A bird could land on you and ruin your entire video that you're making. Like, who knows what could happen when you're creating, right? But the point is to create. It's not the likes, it's not the comments, it's not the shares. It's to keep creating, because one day someone will come across what you have done and it'll inspire them to try and create, or it'll inspire them to seek out more of your creations. And the more that you get to do these things, and the more that you realize what a privilege it is to express yourself. You know, our ancestors did not have that privilege. Like, whenever I see people just like dressing up in these outdated outfits and like wanting to go back to simpler times and like really craving all that, I'm like, have we forgotten like all the restrictions on us as human beings? So we got to celebrate the differences. We got to celebrate the similarities. We got to celebrate the opposites. We got to celebrate being uncomfortable. We got to get uncomfortable to get through to the magic that lives within all of us. And we can keep sharing that. I'm going to keep blissfully sharing stuff, because if you read my latest magazine, you would know that positivity is not something that I just put over things because that's just, you know, this blind delusional world that I want to live in, and I want to live in a bubble and whatever. I choose that because a lot of my life has been out of my hands and out of my control, and the negatives that came from that helped me to be where I am today. And, you know, it's not an easy choice to wake up every single day and choose to find the joy and find the happiness. It's something that a lot of people struggle with. And as we go into these colder seasons, as we go into these colder months, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we see a lot of people struggling and a lot of people looking for ways to stay connected with the world around them. That's not the news. That's not politics. That's not social media. I saw an astrologer, ironically, on social media, talking about the mass exodus of social media. So if you're feeling inclined to staying away from it, YouTube is a great start. You know, YouTube has the same types of information. You can search everything, you can find videos on things, it's an archive. There's so much you can do on YouTube, and it's not as much of the I mean, you could go in comments and you can fight with people, and if that makes you feel better, I guess, but there's just so much creatively that can inspire you from there. I like to spend a lot of time reading, and I'm in a book club where we get all sorts of random books all the time, and it's great. And we don't necessarily have to meet and talk about it, but the people who want to can. And that's nice. And I want to start my own little book club. So if you see my book recommendations being more tweeted about, um, you're welcome. There's also one more thing. I know that we're at the end of 2025, but even though we're at the end of 2025 or getting close to the end of calendar 2025, there's so much left in this year that we have coming up. There's that new moon on October 21st that I'm really excited to have this new start and this fresh start in Libra. It's also around the love of my life's birthday and the 1 year anniversary for my publishing house, Ninth House Publishing. So we'll be announcing a few things around then too. And I'm going to keep working on the things I love and keep sharing the things I love through the internet. And while I might not be available in real time on social media, you can always follow along on my channels. I'm doing more things front facing, right? Doing more interviews, doing more podcasts, doing more recordings, doing more informational videos, doing more things on my website where people can find me behind closed doors. I don't necessarily feel like I'll ever leave social media completely just because I love yapping and I love connecting with others. Like, I've met so many cool people on social media, the love of my life included. You know, he reached out one day, was like, "Hey girl, I want to buy you some crystals and sage and, you know, help you align your chakras." And I'm like, "Sign me up." But that was, I mean, that's the very short form of it. But, you know, we moved mountains to be with each other. And it's something that I love to share that story and talk about him because it's just a true sign of partnership. And I'm getting to learn that as an Aries, learning what it's like to be part of a duo instead of just do everything yourself all the time, always, like I just very recently bragged about doing. It's been a gift, and learning more parts of myself and seeing him as a mirror has been a gift. So if you find a Libra in your life and you happen to love them dearly, hold on to them, as they will show you parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed and show you sides to yourself that you weren't even aware that you might want to address or work with or celebrate. Like, I was told right before this stream how amazing and wonderful I am and to light up and enjoy myself because I do love what I do. And when you love what you do, you don't work, right? And one thing that I don't want to do is work. I think working is strenuous and then labor implying. And I think what I do is create. And I don't want to say my job is I work in astrology. You know, I create in astrology. I reflect in astrology. I research in astrology. Sometimes people call astrology geocosmic research. So there's that. There's just so many ways that I don't want to ever labor over something that I love. So I try to keep it safe. I try to share it in guidebooks. And when I say try to share, I just do share. Let's be real. I'm sharing all my love of the Sabian symbols with you guys, including who wrote the best book covering them, which is Linda Hill, 360 Degrees of Wisdom. And then it breaks down every position in your chart that I work with for a lot of things. So very exciting. I'm going to continue doing that. I'm going to continue creating my quarterly magazine with my amazing editor, Mariah. I'm going to continue jumping into conversations that I don't know enough about but can't wait to learn about. I'm going to continue surrounding myself with brilliant people because I love being the dumbest one in the room. I love looking around and being like, holy shit, look at all these brilliant people. Like, I can't wait to learn from them. And that's something that you can only feel when you are at peace with yourself and how much you know already. And one thing that's gotten me through my life is my brain big, powerful brain. That's why my head's so big and full of information as well as secrets. There's that too. My hair is not as big today as it was the last time you guys saw me. So maybe that's my head's just taking over. Oh my gosh. So, as much as I love to talk about all the things that I have coming up and all the things that I've done, I just really want to say thank you all for being here and continuing to support me week after week and jumping in the chat, jumping in the show, and just say anything. You can talk to me about whatever. You can ask about placements in your chart. I'm definitely able to answer some of those on these live shows, and I actually absolutely love having those moments. So it's not going to be like I'm not going to break down a synastry chart of you and another person and tell you when you're going to get married, but I will tell you about a degree of a placement you have and talk about maybe themes around that degree that I don't even have to look at your chart for. That's kind of the beauty of working with the Sapien symbols. So thank you all again. My name is Gracey with Northern Astrology, and I'm so grateful that you have been here with me this whole time. Or if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for continuing to support my channel, and I promise there'll be lots more in the future for you all to look forward to. Have a great Sunday, and go Chiefs.